Okay, we're going to look at multiplication of real numbers today. We're going to look at multiplication of positive numbers, and negative numbers. Oh man. So with this video, there should be a number of shortcuts. You want to try to use shortcuts when they help you out, but then also try to pick up on why the shortcuts work, and that'll help you make sense of everything else. And the last thing before we start is no calculators. Try not to use a calculator. With multiplication, it will slow you down in the long run. So try to wean yourself off of it. But also, I know you will always have one, so it's a good thing. I like calculators; they're great. But try to do these without a calculator. It'll help build a good number sense for you. Okay, so let's talk about signs. The product of two real numbers with the same sign is positive. So if they're both positive, it's positive. This is what you know already, right? But if they're both negative, then it's going to be negative. The reason for this, actually, we'll look down here at the reason, but in short, the reason is because you have -6, -3s. So that's going to end up being positive. The product of two real numbers with different signs is negative. So 2 minus -5 is -10, and then -7 and 2 would be -14. Okay, so find the product. So here, these are both -8. Sorry, they're both negative. So -8 times -6 is positive 48 when you do 8 times 6. Here, -7 times 2 is going to be -14. And you can think of this as two -7s, because that's multiplication, right? So you could think of it as this way. If we were to 7 times 2, like 7 times 2, which we know is 14, it's just 7 plus 7, which is 14. So -7 times 2 is -7 plus -7, which is -14. Here we have -0.5 times -4. Multiplying by 0.5 is something you should try to learn to do in your head. It's just dividing by 2. So -4 divided by -2 would be +2, and then times -9. So now I have, the signs are different. So it's -18. Here, when I multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. So you get -3/3, which reduces to -1. And then -1 times 7 is -7. Here, 2 times 2.5. So let's think about doing this in our head. So to do like 2.5 of something in your head, don't worry about the half first. So 2 times -2, or -2 times 2 is 4. And then, so kind of keep that in your mind. We have 4 in your mind. And then half of -2, or half of 2, is 1. And so you're going to add that value to what you had before. So 2 times 2.5 would be 5, and it's negative because the signs are different. And then -5 times -4 is 20. Also, 2 times the number is just the number twice, so 2.5 plus 2.5 is 5. When you multiply fractions, you just multiply straight across. The first two have different signs, so they're negative, and then 2 times 4 is 8. And then here, the numbers are both negative, and so that makes a positive. 3 times 2 is 6, and then 8 times 3 is 24, and that's positive because they're both negative. And then these do reduce. 6 goes into 24 4 times. Okay, so these are the properties of multiplication, and we'll kind of go through these a little quickly. The big thing is to get what they mean. So order does not matter with multiplication, the commutative property. The associative property says kind of the same thing, but grouping doesn't matter. So you can multiply first, second, and then second, third. If you multiply anything by 1, you get what you started with. That's the identity property. Anything times 0 is 0. the property of 0. That's useful in a lot of algebra stuff we do. And then if you multiply by -1, then it just changes the sign of the number. Okay, so let's look at identifying some of these. So here we multiply by -1. That's the property of -1. And I would pause the video and try to work these out on your own. Here, order doesn't matter, so that's the commutative property. This is the property of 0. Actually, we'll call it the 0 product property. Here, it looks like we're regrouping things. So -2.5 times y, and then over here, we're going to do the y times -4 first. So that's the associative property. I won't abbreviate that one too good. And then here, 12 times 1 is 12, and that is the identity property. If you multiply by 1, you just get what you started with. Which you use that a lot with fractions, adding and subtracting fractions. Okay, so let's try some more multiplication. Once again, make sure you pause the video and work through these. Substitute the values in. Be careful with your signs. And then these are both negative, so it makes a positive when you multiply. Here, you could go in order, which is fine. And if you want to do it in one step, just count the negatives. So there's 1, 2, 3 negatives, so that's odd. And you're going to end up with a negative number. To kind of take it slow, -4 times -2 would be +8. And then 8 times 3, those are both positive. That's just 24. And then that -1 turns it into -24. Here, watch your signs again. We'll always say watch our signs. That's a 12, excuse me. Here we're going to multiply these two first. So let's make that -6 and then times 1. You can write it like this because these are really just fractions over 1. You multiply the top times the tops and the bottom times the bottom. And then this reduces to 1/2. 6 goes into 12 2 times. And then 0.5 times -2, which is kind of weird, and then -3. So this really, like, you probably won't write this too often. If it's -x, then you just change the sign, make it positive. And 1/2 times 2, that's the same as dividing by 2. So that's just 1. And that's just -3. Okay, and the last thing we'll talk about on this video is a little bit more about the inverse. The inverse property of multiplication is very important when we solve equations. So it'd be good to talk about it now. It is the thing you multiply by that makes 1. Inverse, I forgot my E there. Okay, so the inverse here would be -1/6. The reason for that is if I multiply -6 times -1/6, then I just get 1. So you can see, hopefully you can start seeing this pattern of like you were flipping the fraction. So -6 over 1 is just flipping the fraction. 2 times 3, we're going to flip the fraction and make it 3 times 2 for the inverse. To justify it, we could say, well, 2 times 3 times 3 times 2 is equal to 6 over 6, which is equal to 1. So that justifies our answer. Here, our inverse, we want to make it 1, and it's negative, so it's got to be negative. And then flip the fraction, 4 over 5. And to justify it, just like the other ones, we can multiply. You can also think of this with multiplication as like, or if you remember canceling or cross canceling, we're reducing, the 4s cancel, the 5s cancel, and the signs are both negative, so it becomes positive. Okay, so good luck. Have fun multiplying numbers.